Let's do a video on the side-scrolling beat-em-up that arguably defined the whole damn genre. Final Fight, created by Capcom, of course. Final Fight bounded into arcades on November 25th of 1989, ending up being one of Capcom's most successful arcade cabinets. So successful, in fact, it was Japan's highest-grossing arcade cabinet in 1990, and it even managed to be the second highest-grossing arcade cabinet in Japan in 1991, only being surpassed by Capcom's other smash success in Street Fighter II. It was also a smash success in America, topping charts for both arcades and its respective conversion kits too. Money-wise, each cab in the year of 1990 in the USA managed to bring home at least $183.50. That is over 700 quarters apiece, for reference. Final Fight would go on to sell 30,000 arcade cabinets worldwide, too. It was quite the big deal, and understandably so. It had a huge effect on gaming as a whole, and hell, as much as I love the Streets of Rage series, I don't think that game even exists without this one. I did it in my Final Fight LNS video, but let me sum up the story once again for Final Fight real quick. Mike Hagar, former pro wrestler in Street Fighter II, has been elected as the mayor of the crime-ridden shithole known as Metro City. As a newly appointed mayor, Mike very quickly starts taking out the trash, cleaning up the streets of its various crime problems, and working toward Metro City's prosperity. The local crime syndicate, though, known as the Mad Gear Gang, are not fans of this since they obviously profit off of all the crime in Metro City. In a desperate bid to bring Hagar into compliance like Metro City's last mayor, they kidnap his daughter Jessica to ensure his compliance. Mike, however, is not a bitch, so instead of healing like a dog, he tears his shirt off, grabs a metal pipe, and decides to take out the trash himself. Knowing that Mad Gear is a huge organization, though, Hagar realizes he can't do this alone, so he contacts Cody, Jessica's boyfriend, an experienced Street Fighter in his own right. Cody brings along Guy as well, a Bushin Ryu ninja and a close friend of his. These three are your playable characters, of course, and they work on a pretty simple sliding scale of attributes. Guy is the fast character. Quick attacks, fastest move speed, and he can wall jump, but also has a fairly short range to help balance him out in the grand scheme of things. Cody is the middle-of-the-road fighter. Average power and average speed, though Cody does make himself a shade unique by being an expert with knives, meaning he knows how to stab with them instead of just whipping them at his enemies. Hagar is the brick shithouse with the most powerful strikes, the longest range, and a super devastating arsenal of throws, and he can even hold these chump-ass thugs in a choke while walking, which this is countered of course by his slower attack speed and his glacial movement pace. Pick your respective vigilante and hit the Metro City slums to pummel some Mad Gear thugs. Since Final Fight is basically a beat-up in his most purest and distilled form, it's obviously a pretty simple little game. You can walk, you can jump, you have your simple attack string, jumping attacks, and you have that ever-fun auto-grab system to execute your throws. All of these being staples of the beat-em-up genre, of course. This one also features 3 weapons to pick up and use. A knife, a metal pipe, and a katana. The piece de resistance of any beat-em-up, though, all sorts of random shit to pick up off the ground, including that delicious ground food, as well as money, and beer too, for health and for points, of course, so once again, you can do your best to fill the high score table with more ass in a Sir Mix-a-Lot video. But before you can truly do that, you have 6 whole levels to conquer, each of course with a unique boss awaiting you at the end of each, and with each being absolutely polluted by street trash, also known as the rank and file of the Mad Gear Gang. Fun fact, Mad Gear, the name, comes from a old Capcom gang called Mad Gear. These thugs are a wretched zoo of the most devious and disgusting warriors out there. From basic street thugs to slightly advanced street thugs who know the advanced technique of blocking. Blasphemy. You'll also have to grapple with the entirety of the Andore clan, a family of professional wrestlers who resemble Andre the Giant and consist of grandfather, father, Andore, and Andore Jr. Showing up as Mad Gear's sole female representatives are Poison and Roxy, brave transgendered warriors who have turned to a life of crime to afford legitimate estrogen and not the bathtub stuff that you have to buy from China. And lastly, there's these lanky assholes who not only do the slide attack that you see in every damn beat 'em up, they also do the super annoying jump attack too, but they also serve as the game's weapon tossers, knives, and Molotovs too. Complete assholes, I'll be honest. A fun fact about all the enemies in this game is that each are named after various famous rock stars of the 70s and 80s. Axl Rose, Gene Simmons, King Diamond, Roxy Music, Poison, just to put some examples out there for you. But the baddest of the bad are all the bosses that meet you at the end of each of the levels. After fighting through the slums, you'll encounter your first boss in Damned. He's a pretty standard first boss. Not overly intimidating, still hits pretty hard, but pretty easy to avoid his attacks. Really, he's kind of annoying since he keeps calling flunkies to fight you while he waits on the sidelines. He is, however, quite vulnerable to being pile-driven. After putting Damned down, you work your way through the dirty subway of Metro City before you eventually end up in the underground wrestling ring of boss number 2. Sodom. Sodom is a turbo weeb, donning a Kabuto helmet and slanging dual katanas, which you can knock these out of his hands and try to use them against him, but he does not like that very much, and he will get super pissed off, immediately lashing out against you with a charge to get his precious Nipponese steel back. It's here. I'll mention that the bosses in the game are, of course, all incredibly beefy, and one hit from them will basically chunk out at least a third of your health bar, but there is an easy way to beat the bosses. So, viewers, I will ask you now, you want to learn how to do a fucking infinite? You gotta pick Cody and do this. Jab, jab, turn away, punch, turn back, and then jab, jab again. You gotta keep the rhythm up, though. Fuck it up, and you'll get whacked. How's it taste, motherfucker? Every boss dies pretty easy to this strategy, and it's basically how most of us beat Final Fight back in the day. With the weeb now officially oppressed, you advance onto the west side of town, but not before you smash up some poor bastard's car.
Oh my god!
I've definitely lost a voter come next election. West Side is a very deep red color thanks to the bricks and lighting. Midway through the level, you actually get kidnapped by the Andori family and you're whisked away to another underground fighting ring where you have to fight the entire Andori clan. Hugo, Andori Jr., Father Andori, and Grandfather Andori too. You beat up that clan of freaks and you fight your way to the West Side streets and engage the level boss in EDE, a corrupt cop and smartest boss in the game since he has a fucking gun. I think I say that every time it comes up in a beat 'em up, but really, so many of these beat 'em ups take place in the USA and there's just no guns. Very, very strange. You put that fat fuck down and it's on in Metro City's bustling industrial area where the floors almost constantly burst into flames and nothing seems to actually get produced here. This level was definitely the most annoying out of all the levels in this one due to the constant health hazards, but at least the enemies are vulnerable to the flames too. After a dreary gray hall, you end up on an elevator where, after dispatching some flunkies, you fight against militant warrior Rolento, a tricky dick bastard who uses knives, a stick, and grenades to try to take you out. You defeat him, and being disgraced in such a way, Rolento immediately heroes with his remaining grenades. After such a stressful fight, you about to blow off some steam by breaking into the local glass pane factory and you destroy all their products. And then you hit the lovely Bay Area of Metro City. You get a very nice view of Metro City here, set during the dead of night actually. It's a real city that never sleeps vibes here. It has a nice splashing of color as well. I definitely like the view here. Nice yellows, a bit of cyan, and it's contrasted with the pitch black of the night sky and the nice big glowing moon right there in the middle. And this is contrasted by how shitty the foreground streets look, covered in garbage and street trash to kill. You even get to fight in a dirty bathroom to really help put the cherry on top here. The boss here is Abigail, who has a few techniques. A very angry running punch and a baby toss amongst them. I realized after defeating Abigail that dawn was now breaking. The heroes have been whooping ass for almost a whole day now. You kill him, and after leaving the battle by the bay, you hit the final area of Final Fight, the bougie area known as Uptown, and you begin your final fight to the final boss. You fight through another tremendous gauntlet of thugs before busting into the penthouse of the final boss, but oh no, you get ambushed from behind instead by Belger, the final boss. He actually rolls around on a motorized wheelchair, just got in one hand and a harpoon gun in the other. Though you can very quickly bully him out of his chair. I actually grabbed the asshole and pile drove him through the damn thing, completely destroying it in the process. That feels like an Attitude Era spot, I won't lie. You pummel Belger and you end up beating him so hard that he flies out the nearby window and dies, ending the Mad Year gang. For now, at least. Mike Hagar is reunited with his daughter Jessica. Jess also has a nice romantic reunion with Cody too, after Guy beats him sensitive, of course. And that's the end of Final Fight. Let's talk about some ports of the famous game, since there's actually some pretty interesting differences between the arcade version and its various console incarnations. Starting with the SNES version, this port was released about a year after the arcade version. This one has a very glaring fault. Tell me if you spot it, viewers. Yeah, there's no guy, just Cody and Hagar. Can you imagine getting this game on Christmas? Oh boy, mummy, my favorite beat-em-up is now on my favorite home console. I can't wait to play my favorite character, the Ninja Guy. Would you have cried? I wouldn't have, because my favorite character was always Hagar, but still. Another glaring fault of the SNES version is that there's no cooperative play at all. You can only take Mad Gear down by yourself. The industrial level of the game is also completely missing too, Rolento alongside it. Replaced, but not removed however, are the game's sole female enemies in Poison and Roxy, them being replaced by two dudes named Sid and Billy, who just use their moveset in game. This is in the North American version, of course, and the reason for this is that the developers of Final Fight were a bit worried about the USA's sensitivity towards acts of violence committed on women, so the gruesome twosome were completely replaced. Characters Damned and Sodom also got renamed to Thrasher and Katana, respectively, presumably because Damned is a swear, and Sodom refers to anal sex, or the biblical city of sinners that was wiped off the map. Hilariously, though, Belger has had his wheelchair redrawn to be a lazy boy recliner that he happily still zips around in. I guess this happened because beating up a crippled person is a shade too messed up for the censors. Man, this port sucks. I can't beat up women. I can't beat up cripples. Why don't I just go into a hole and die, In terms of very small censorship for this one, all instances of blood have been removed from the game, and the beer pickup has been renamed to soda. Obviously, this one also suffered from a severe downgrade in both graphics, music, and sound when compared to the arcade version. But that's kind of par for the course for a cartridge port, though. I can't really hold it against it too much. A few years after this one, we got another SNES port of Final Fight, but this one was called Final Fight Guy. It's basically the same thing as the original, but Cody has been removed this time. In-game, this is explained by saying that both Cody and Guy were off training in Japan, but by the time of the game's events, only Guy was in town to help, whilst Cody was still fucking around in Japan somewhere. This also affects the final cutscene of the game, since it's now just Hagar rescuing his daughter, and it's just Guy walking away. Not gonna lie, Cody probably in the doghouse after this one. Let's head over now to the Sega CD port of Final Fight. See how the Sega side of things fared. Sound and graphics wise, I'd say this one did a lot better than the SNES. Look, all three characters are playable. Co-op is available too. How wonderful. Even crazier, this one has voice-acted cutscenes.
What? What happened to Jessica? Who is this? You son of a... What have you done to her?
Guy, Jessica was kidnapped.
Jessica?
My sweetheart since childhood.
The Mad Gear must pay.
Okay, admittedly they sound like the kind of voiceovers that you hear in a Christian after-school special, but hey, it's pretty damn interesting regardless, don't you think? I certainly wasn't expecting it when I booted this one up. The Sega CD version also has a rearranged music soundtrack, which are okay, I won't lie. Censorship-wise though, Poison and Roxy, whilst they're still in the game, are now wearing less revealing clothing. Good news, Sega is okay with beating up women just so long as they're covered up. But yeah, this one definitely clobbers the SNES version. Sega doing what Nintendo don't, as always. There was also a handful of PC Engine ports back then too, which ranged from to yeah, crap to really fucking bad. Not even worth playing myself, honestly. Another interesting port, however, would be Final Fight 1 for the Game Boy Advance. This is basically an enhanced version of the SNES cart. All the same enemies are included, even Sid and Billy, which I really didn't expect to see those two again anytime soon. Enhanced, since the game has a totally new menu system, UI elements, all three characters are now playable, thankfully, and the industrial area has been restored, with Rolento added too. You get some text dialogue between you and the bosses when you run across them, which helps give the game some nice flavor, of course. Coolly, the game has a handful of unlockables to earn as you play the game, best of which are unlockable versions of the Street Fighter Alpha sprites of Guy and Cody. Nothing new for Hagar though, unfortunately. And you unlock all these things by just killing enemies in the game. The game also adds a handful of different difficulty levels, ranging from very easy to very hard, which really helps with the unlockables since you can just turn on very easy and crank through all the enemies in the game. The weirdest thing about this port though, at least in my opinion, is how smashed in everything is. I mean, yeah, it's a Game Boy Advance port of a console port of an arcade game, so things really had to be scaled down, but it feels a little claustrophobic, I won't lie. The sounds have been crunched down a little bit, and the musics have been remixed to fit the GBA card, which, I won't lie, they are pretty faithful to the original game's soundtracks. This is a pretty solid port, I won't lie. I would have loved to have had this as a kid. Being able to play a beat-em-up on the go on my cool, transparent purple GBA would have been awesome. The final ports of any note for this game would be 1. Final Fight Double Impact. This was a bundle that came with another Capcom beat-em-up called Magic Sword. This version, sold on the PS3 and 360's marketplaces, featured HD upscaled graphics, and since it was a modern port, it came with online co-op functionality, and leaderboards too, so you could show off to your friends. And of course, 2 would be the Capcom beat-em-up bundle, which had Final Fight and a handful of Capcom's other really classic, awesome beat-em-ups too. This is obviously the best way to play Final Fight now, since it's a straight port of the arcade version, has online functionality with drop-in, drop-out co-op play, and it has the JP version available to play too, if you're into that, of course. Alongside, a bunch of awesome other beat-em-ups. And yeah, I think that's it for Final Fight, but I won't lie, this game's characters and its legacy are felt all throughout, not just the Final Fight franchise, but Street Fighter, Marvel vs. Capcom, and some other games too. To elaborate a bit more, Cody would go on to be a playable character in Street Fighter Alpha, Street Fighter 4, Street Fighter 5, and Street Fighter Cross Tekken. Guy would also be featured in Alpha, Street Fighter 4, Street Fighter Cross Tekken, and he would also appear in a non-fighting game capacity in the crossover titled Namco Cross Capcom, being paired with Ginzu from Captain Commando. Hagar had a bit of a different route than these two though. He'd first have a prequel title appearance, being playable in Saturday Night Slam Masters, and he also managed to be a playable allied character in the Namco Cross Capcom game. He would make his first proper fighting game debut though in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, The Fate of Two Worlds, and he would appear in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite as well. He was also slated to appear in the cancelled Capcom Fighting All-Stars game, which would have been his first fighting game appearance. As for the villain side of things, well, Hugo would be playable in Street Fighter 3, Street Fighter 4, Street Fighter Cross Tekken, and in SNK vs. Capcom SVC Chaos. Additionally, the entire Andorre family would once again make an appearance in Street Fighter 6 as fightable opponents in the game's World Tour mode. Rolento would fare pretty well as a villain too, being playable in Street Fighter Alpha, Street Fighter 4, and CVS 2, as well as Street Fighter Cross Tekken. He was also in some game called Street Fighter Cross Mega Man. Never heard of it, I can't lie. Poison would cameo in Street Fighter 3 as Hugo's valet before becoming a full-on playable character in Street Fighter Cross Tekken, Street Fighter 4, and Street Fighter 5 too. Sodom will make his sole playable appearance in the Street Fighter Alpha series, and for some ungodly reason, Abigail would mark his first playable appearance in a fighting game in Street Fighter 5. This character was a closer for EVO one year. I hope you guys know that. Damned would make a fairly sizable appearance as an NPC in Street Fighter 6's World Tour mode. I wonder how old he is here even. But yeah, that's pretty much it for Final Fight 1's characters though. I'll cover the rest in the future whenever I do the other Final Fight games. Final Fight was such a tremendous game, and it was one that had such a long-reaching impact on Capcom gaming as a whole. I'd love to go in more, but this video has to end now. As always, dearest viewers, my name is HadesManticore, and this here channel, it's CityStateManticore. Thanks a ton for watching if you did. Be sure to drop a like and a comment too if you enjoyed. Be sure to subscribe too, since as always there's more content to come. I'll see y'all in the next video. Goodbye.